All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
What's up, fam? It's Pastor Mike with you. Listen, I've got a question. How much is your future worth? I mean, really, how much do you value your own particular destiny? And then that becomes a question of investing. How much is it worth investing in? You know, they say in life that you only get out of it what you put in it. So what if I were to tell you that I can help you get more money than you've ever gotten before, have more happiness than you've ever had before, and have more peace than you've ever had before? I want you to join me on my coaching platform called The Wisdom Blueprint. The Wisdom Blueprint is simply the what to, the how to, everything you need to know to have more joy, to have more peace, to have more money. Join me on the Wisdom Blueprint every month. It's a monthly subscription, no contracts necessary. Cancel at any time and get the insight, the intel you need that will take your life, your ministry, your business to the next level. I'm talking about the Wisdom Blueprint. Sign up today. Well, good afternoon, good evening. Well, not afternoon. Whenever you are watching, I want to say thank you for tuning in to Wednesday's Word with yours truly, Pastor Mike. Listen, this is still Black History Month, and we want to make sure that we honor the icons that we've grown to know and love in terms of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and then, of course, all of the other icons, the Rosa Parks, the uncelebrated heroes and sheroes of our ancestors who made sacrifices that literally transformed our nation. Matter of fact, I want to give you several books here I want you to consider checking into as we get into tonight's topic. But I want you to take a look at these. These are some of the, I think, excuse me, some of the most important books that you need to pick up if you want to gain perspective. What I've come to realize is this, that yes, there is a such thing as history, but you cannot just take his story without their story. See, because history could indeed be his story, but you need their story in order to gain balance, okay, to have a proper perspective. And just because they say it's history, it cannot be complete without their story. So these are books I believe that every person should read. One of which, of course, is The Empire of Cotton, A Global History by Savan Beckert, and then The Counter-Revolution by Gerald Horne. The Half Has Never Been Told. That's by Edward E. Baptiste. And Black Reconstruction by W.E.B. Du Bois, Burghardt. I never knew that was his middle name. But anyway, W.E.B. Du Bois. And then The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Black Labor, White Wealth, Dr. Claude Anderson. And these are not by any mean the only books out there that can help you gain perspective. The whole idea is so that you can gain perspective, because a lot of people walk around only knowing what they know, and they're satisfied with only knowing with what they know. Notwithstanding, there is so much more out there to be discovered, to be uncovered. But some, they're willing to kind of bury their heads in the sands of time in an effort to not even acknowledge some of the other information that may be out there. And a lot of times it's because they're afraid of what they may discover. And because whenever you discover truth, truth demands that you make some sort of adjustment. Once you know the truth, you become responsible for propagating, promulgating, delineating, heralding the truth, because the truth is what makes us free. Okay, so all month long, I've just committed myself to making sure that we promulgate the not just recent history. No, we love Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Huey Lewis, Huey Louis, and a lot of the other names that I can't call right now, but our history goes further back than just mere the 1960s and early 60s and 70s. We've got and it goes back beyond the 1800s as well. So it's important for us to recognize that we as a people, and I say this all the time, whenever I feel compelled to say black, when it refers to us as a people, those who are of African descent, I always feel compelled to remind you that that's a misnomer to call us black, because a people is defined and identified by three things. Number one, their culture. Number two, their traditions or history. And number three, their geography. So it's their culture, the history, their geography. Those three ideas is what determines or distinguishes a people. So when you go to China, for instance, you're going to see Chinese. When you go to Russia, you're going to meet Russians. When you go to Australia, you're going to meet Australians because their customs, their traditions, their customs, and their history, or their history, their customs, their traditions, and their geography determines and identifies who they are. That's why you cannot go anywhere on the planet and find black people because there is no place called black. There's no Black Afghanistan, no Black Blackenstein or Black Stovia. There is no such thing. Okay, so it's a misnomer, and the opposite is also true because there's no place called white as well. But it's a construct. It's a design, basically to design to help identify and thereby discriminate and show some level of oppression to just a group of people. So the whole concept of race is a misnomer because there's only really one type of race, and that's the human race, a class of people who share the same oxygen, the same H2O. We are one people. But whenever there's a distinction between people, generally, whenever there's a distinction drawn between people, it's usually there for the purpose of dominating a people. Okay. And at any time, check the history. Anytime there is some distinction between any group of people, even if it's among themselves, you talk about black on black crime, you got white on white crime. The things that, excuse me, the things that they utilize to distinguish a difference between the two. So for the purpose of creating some sort of bias, some sort of prejudice against them. And so the less we see ourselves as one, the more prone we are to discriminate, to have some sort of bigotry, to show some sort of prejudice towards one another, so that we won't fulfill what God really wants us to fulfill, and that is to be one people, so that we can do something that would amaze and then do something that would be incredible and unprecedented. Remember the one time that we were all one tongues, according to the Bible, and I believe it's Genesis, the 11th chapter. It talks about the people were one language. And they begin to build this tower, the Tower of Babel. That word Babel actually is in remembrance of what happened there at that moment, because God confused their language so much so that they could not understand one another, and thereby would not be able to finish the building of the great Tower of Babel. And that word Babel actually denotes the fact that their tongues were so confused that it was as though they were just speaking Babel. You've ever heard that term before? They're just babbling because it's indistinguishable. And as such, they had to put away the whole building project. The point I'm making is usually, whenever you see there a campaign of any sort to try to divide a people, it's usually so that they could conquer. It's the oldest trick in the book. The more I can draw distinction between you and your neighbor, the better chance I have of conquering both you and your neighbor. So it's the oldest trick in the book. All right. So anyway, I just wanted to do my part to help promote Black history, aka African American history, that goes well beyond the recent 70s and well beyond the 17th and 18th century. Listen, as a matter of fact, you list on any of the books. If you pick up any of the books that I mentioned at the opening, you'll discover that we scan and spanned over thousands of years. Before there was even such thing as America, there was our people of African descent or African origin, and there would be no such thing as civilization if it were not for the African people. You can argue that point as much as you want, no matter what you've seen on TV with Tarzan and all of the other the non-pro black shows and movies and series that you've seen that seem to denigrate the existence of African people. no matter what they told you, check the facts and you will find out that there would be no such thing. We are not barbarians. We're not uncivilized. As a matter of fact, I found out that usually what happens is the people that are accusing you are usually the ones who are guilty. That's usually how it goes. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. Now, tonight we want to continue in our study of the book of Acts. I hope you guys are being blessed by this. We are slow rolling through each of the books of the New Testament so as to gain a better understanding of the text themselves, to gain some theological perspective so that we can grow thereby. And then, of course, so that we can demonstrate what it is to be a believer in the 21st century. Because, again, faith without works is dead being alone. Just because you are a believer, excuse me, that's not the end game. The end game is not just being saved. The end game is to demonstrate the power of that salvation. We should be a living epistle read of all men. We should be a shining example of what it means to be converted from the kingdom of darkness, which is ignorance, to the kingdom of light, which is illumination or understanding. Okay? So please understand, everything about the kingdom of heaven is to bring us closer into understanding. The Bible says, in all of your getting, get understanding. Not a good time, not goosebump. He says, in all you're getting, get understanding, because nothing is truly yours until you understand it. And once you understand it, now you understand the purpose, and thereby you can properly utilize that which you have in your possession because you understand it. Okay? Understand? I want to say good evening again to all of my viewers, those that are watching now, those that are watching later. I appreciate you. I thank you for tuning in. I would ask that you would become an electronic evangelist and help me spread this good news, spread this illumination throughout the world of your clicking the share button and sharing with at least 5 to 10, maybe all of your friends. Why stop at 5 or 10? Share with all of them. Just take, there's a little thing that in Messenger, particularly on Facebook, just go through and just tick, 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 and click all of them till everyone has a copy of tonight's teaching. All right. So do that for me and become that electronic evangelist. Tonight, I want to go back to the book of Acts, to the 22nd chapter, and we're going to get right into it now. Father, we thank you for the entrance of your word because it brings light. Thank you for that light. Amen and amen. Okay. Now, let me take you to my Bible. Oh, by the way, before I do that, I want to take a moment to also let you know that we have upgraded our service times from 1 p.m. in the afternoon to 9 a.m. Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. I am telling you what an amazing time we are having in both spirit and truth. The Bible says that the Father searches one who would worship him in spirit and in truth. And that's what you get every Sunday morning. Empowerment that will equip you and design you so that you can walk effectively in this life and have victory and have increase and abundance. We won't settle for anything less. So this is Sundays at 9 a.m. at the Movement Church, 2160 North Hiawassee Road, right here in Orlando, 9 a.m. So this is your personal invite to come out and hang out with us from Sunday. Now, if you come late, fashionably late, you will. It's quite possible you will miss the service. Okay, so make sure you're there on time or early and be blessed by the fellowship. Also, want to let you know, I am super, super excited about this here. It has been about 12 years in the making, actually. This 12 Things That Ruins Relationship, a guide to knowing when it's safe to love. This is one of my first book. It is a literal book. It's not a pamphlet, but it is an actual book filled with information and insight that I've gleaned from 35 years of marriage in a sense that I've learned more about myself, I've learned more about how to relate to my spouse. I've learned how to raise children. I've learned how to raise other people's children. So I'm married into a family. The day I got married, I got a wife and 3 kids all at the same time. And they were all different age groups at that time. So they're going through their own phases 3 times. So I got a lot to tell you. So make sure that you go to MichaelNormanMinistries.com and reserve your copy by saying, writing me at that email address or at my website. And reserve your copy by saying, putting 12 things in the subject line. When you write me at Michael Norman Ministries, make sure that you click on the button that says get in contact with me. And in the subject line, just simply put 12 things, and we will give you a notification when the book is actually released. We are expecting that it's going to be released the 1st of March. That's what, or at least the first or second week of March. And of course, when it's released, we will let you know, and you'll be the first to know. Speaking of which, in the month of March, you're talking about March Madness. We have got some of the most exciting things prepared for you for the month of March. I want you to get ready. We're going to teach you some things in the area of finance that perhaps very few people even know about, and you're going to be one of the few who find out about it this month in the month of March. We're going to talk to you about that more in the days to come. So again, if you want a copy of the book, make sure that you write me or email me rather at MichaelNormanMinistries.com. And then, of course, in the subject line, put 12 things that will let me know that you want to be notified when the book, 12 Things That Ruin Relationships, A Guide to Knowing When It's Safe to Love, when it's released, you will be the first to know. All right. Now, let's go to the Bible. 22nd chapter of Acts. As you can see, we're already got it queued up, ready to go. Why is that like that? Excuse me 1 second. I just have to fix. How do I fix it? Oh, there you go. Give me 1 second. I need to do this. I didn't see that happening there earlier. Give me 1 second. And I like to have the book of Acts back there. There it is. Thank you. All right, here we go. Men, brethren, and fathers. These are the words of the Apostle Paul. And many of you, if you've been following along, you've seen his journey. You've seen how he's been converted on the road to Damascus. He's hit with this bolt of light that knocks him blind, and he has to receive his sight by the laying on of hands. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we read on, but let's just start into the 22nd chapter. This is going to give us, it's a bit of a cliffhanger because it doesn't conclude the story, but that we can cover as much as we can tonight. Okay, 22nd chapter of Acts, and it reads, Men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make now unto you. So Paul is basically speaking to a group of Jewish people. As you may have remember, Paul is everywhere he goes, he creates a stir. I mean, he turns the city upside down. And here he is again in a city, and they're getting ready to stone him because he I love what he says. Look, I want to show this to you because it's so wonderful. I love Paul's directness because he's speaking to those idol worshipers and then the idol makers, because the idol makers were benefiting from the people who would worship the idol Diana. And I believe it's in the, it's 20th chapter. Nope. I'm sorry, 19th chapter. Here's what it reads in the 19th chapter. See, this is what gets Paul into trouble, because he goes in, he says, look here at the 26th verse. Moreover, ye see and hear that not only at Ephesus, but almost throughout all of Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away much people. Now, these are the guys who actually makes the idols for the people to worship. And so they're hearing about Paul, and they're having a meeting to find out what they need to do to shut this man's mouth, because he's affecting their profit line. Their bottom line is being affected by this gospel that Paul is preaching. And so here it is, Paul. They're saying again, moreover, you see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all of Asia, this Paul hath persuaded and turned away much people, saying that there be no gods which are made with hands. And how much true is that? Is there anything more true than that? If you can make a god, he is no longer a god by virtue of the fact that you made him. He disqualifies as God, because how can you make something infinite? How can something infinite come from something that's finite? How can something eternal be created by something that's temporary? And I love the fact that Paul is not ashamed and not afraid to address them on the lunacy of the fact that how can you make a God? I mean, that's like saying I can make wind, or I can make water, or, I can make galaxies. It's impossible for you to make these things. These are things that only a God can make. When you see the sun rise in the east, a man cannot make that happen. Only God can make that happen. And so Paul is fully convinced of this reality that man is so subjugated in terms of his comparison to God that there is absolutely no comparison. So to assert that you can make a God is ludicrous in his mind. It's hard for him to even comprehend. How is it that you can make a God with hands of man, with the mere weak, mortal hands of man? Okay, maybe, just maybe you need to enlarge your understanding about God. That he's not just simply somebody that's you can hang on a wall in a picture frame, or something that you can carve and hang over a doorpost. He's well beyond that. It is insane for man to think that he could literally create a God. And yet, we sheepish people will follow something made with the hands of man as though it were God. So it doesn't really tell you much about the people who make these idols. It tells you more about the people who are gullible enough to worship these idols. I mean, we will just about worship anything. So anyway, Paul, obviously this gets him in trouble. He has to go before the proconsul and begin to talk, because he has to defend himself against the Judaizers, who are absolutely incensed with his gospel, because he's asserting himself to be in relationship with God by virtue of this new gospel concerning Jesus Christ, as though Jesus was God. And you know how the Jews felt about Jesus, because they actually crucified him, because they were so offended by his preaching, his teaching, his assertion that he and God are on the same wavelength. I believe it's the psalmist that says, "For thou hast made us a little lower than Elohim, and crowned us with glory, power, forever." And this is what Jesus asserts in his gospel. And then Paul comes along just when they thought they got rid of all of this rubbish of this Jesus Christ fellow. Here comes Apostle Paul and rehearse again the same things about this Christ fellow. So much so that he's willing to put his entire existence on the line for the cause of Christ. Why? Because he ran into him on the road to Damascus, and it literally transformed his entire life. It transformed his perspective. He saw in a way that he'd never seen before. He perceived in a way that he never perceived before. So here it is again. Now that Paul has created a stir throughout all of the known areas, the known region, Cilicia, Persia, and all the other areas that it reads out. And Paul is creating all of this disturbance. And now here he is in the 22nd verse, and they are asking him to defend, or he's asking to defend himself. So he says, "Men and brethren, fathers, hear ye." Notice he says, "Men, brethren, and fathers." So Paul wasn't so saved and so convinced that he was on God's side that he was reckless with his faith. So he knew in order to gain favor with them, he could not come in blaspheming and blasting them with this new gospel. So he addresses them in a way that disarms them by calling them men, brethren, and fathers. So he says, hear ye me, defend which I make now unto you. And when they had heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept the more silent. And he said, so they hear him speak in their native tongue, in the Hebrew tongue or Hebraic tongue. He says, I am verily a man which am a Jew, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in the city at the feet of Gamaliel. Now, that won't make much sense to you if you've never really studied the scripture, but Gamaliel or Gamaliel is one who is revered as one of the premier, I would say teacher, but he's more than a teacher. He's advanced, he's astute, he's scholarly, he's well studied, well academic in his, astute in his knowledge of the law and the application of the law. And this is whom Paul submitted himself to when he was Saul. He studied at the feet of Gamaliel. And this is one of the premier, if not the top Pharisee of Pharisee. You could not find a greater teacher than Gamaliel. And so this Gamaliel is the one whom Paul found favor with, so much so that he taught Paul everything that he knew. And so if Gamaliel excelled beyond all of the other Pharisees, then imagine what Paul was able to do. Because generally what happens is the next generation always takes what the previous generations give them and they 10x, double X, quadruple every time. It's never the same. That's why when Elijah passed away and left his mantle there for Elisha did twice as much ministry and miracles as Elijah, because the preceding generation gives them a head start for the succeeding generation. And we should always do. Even Jesus says, the works that I've done, you shall do also, and greater works. So the succeeding generation should always do better than the previous generation. And the previous generation should not be jealous of it, shouldn't get envious about it, because all they did was take what you taught them, expound and add it to it. You gave them advantage. So I can't understand why any man would be jealous of his son, whether a spiritual son or a natural son. If you teach them everything you know, and they take that and they grow and expand it into well beyond what you gave them, that should be applauded, not denigrated. All right, let me move on. So he says, I'm a Jew. I'm born in Tarsus in Cilicia. He says, I study under Gamaliel and taught to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous towards God, as ye all are this day. He's even complimenting them on their zealousness towards God. But Romans says that it's a sad thing to have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. But he's complimentary. He's complimenting them so that he can begin to communicate what it is he has to say. And that's a life lesson in itself, that you can never be so hell-bent on trying to get your point across till you can't acknowledge the people you're trying to talk to, the people you're trying to convince. Make sure they understand that you respect them first before you try to, overload them with all your insight and all your knowledge and all your glory. Let them know that you respect them, that you see them, that you hear them, and then you'll be able, as they say, honey is, you can win more bees with honey than you can with vinegar, or however it went. You know how it went. Okay, so he says, and I persecuted this way unto death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also the high priest doth bear me witness, and all the estate of the elders, from whom I also received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring them which were there bound unto Jerusalem for to be punished. And it came to pass that as I made my journey and was coming nigh unto Damascus about noon, suddenly there shone from heaven a great light round about me. And I fell to the ground, and I heard a voice say unto me, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? I answered, Who art thou, Lord? And he said unto me, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom thou persecutest. Let me move this up just a little bit. And they that were with me saw the light indeed, and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake to me. And I said, What shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said unto me, Arise, and go into Damascus, and there it shall be told thee of the things which are appointed for thee to do. And when I could not see for the glory of the light, being led by hand of them that were with me, I came unto Damascus. In other words, of course, he was blinded. Talk about that old song, blinded by the light. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to him. But I always like to add this as well, that that light that was shown was literally not the light that blinded him, but it's the light that enlightened him. It didn't simply blind him, but it awakened him. It gave him his sight, because now he could see even what his natural eyes could not see. Now his spiritual eyes have been awakened. That's why oftentimes your natural eyes will be a hindrance to the things of God if you're not learned in terms of how to walk by the Spirit. Learn to trust your spirit eyes just as much or more than you trust your natural eyes, because the things that are seen are not made by those things that are seen. Hebrews 11. Things are not that are seen are not made by that which doth appear. In other words, everything that does appear was made by what does not appear. I know that's oxymoronic, but that's why I told you you can't walk by your natural senses all the time. Sometimes you have to take that leap of faith and walk by the Spirit, because again, the Hebrew writer says that the things that are made that doth appear does not come by that which appear, is made by that which does not appear. The things that are material are made by immaterial. The things that are visible are made by that which is invisible. You see how that works? And so that's why, again, you have to learn to develop your spiritual eyesight, your spiritual mind, and so that you can be able to properly navigate through the physical world and actually operate above this physical world, because, again, you know how to walk according to the dictates of the things that are not seen, because the things that are seen, again, are temporary. But the things that are not seen are eternal. Okay? I hope you're getting this, because I'm getting excited. I enjoy doing this, because this is part of the whole enlightenment period, this whole process of enlightening you, to bringing you to a place of awareness so that you can walk in a way that you've never walked before, that you can see things that you've never seen before. You can begin to hear the things that you've never heard before, so that you can have what you've never had before. It's powerful. It's powerful. Okay, let's get back to the Bible. Okay, so at the 11th verse, it says, "And when I could not see for the glory of the light, being led by hand of men, by the hand of them that were with me, I came into Damascus. And one Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all the Jews which dwelt there, came unto me and stood and said unto me, Behold, brother Saul, receive your sight. And in that same hour I looked up upon him. My eyes were open." 14th verse says, "And he said, The God of our fathers has chosen thee, that thou shouldest know his will, and see that just one, and shouldeth hear the voice of his mouth. For thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. For thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. 16th verse says, And now, why tarriest thou? Arise and be baptized, and wash away thy sin, calling on the name of the Lord. And it shall come to pass that when I was come again to Jerusalem, even while I prayed in the temple, I was in a trance, and saw him saying unto me, Make haste, get thee quickly out of Jerusalem, for they will not receive thy testimony concerning me. Quite naturally. They didn't like Jesus, so most likely they're not going to like you either, Paul. So don't come in. Don't try to do something that there's not a grace for you to do right now. The grace is not in Jerusalem. You need to leave. And that's an important life lesson that we have to understand. Every one of us has been given a grace according to the gift. The gift carries a grace according to Ephesians, the 4th chapter. The gift carries a grace. That's why certain people can do certain things with seemingly no effort at all. But if you don't have the gift to do what they do, it's going to take 4 times the effort to get done what they do in half the time. You get what I'm saying? So always, as they say, stay in your lane. You got to recognize what your lane is and then begin to be content with that and maximize that position. It doesn't mean stay where you are. It just means that this is your lane for now. And if God wants to change you to another lane, he'll give you the update. But in the meantime, you maximize where you are. Bloom where you're planted. Blossom where you're planted. Okay? In the words of Mama T, Thelma Wells. Bloom where you're planted. All right, because that's where your grace is. That's where it's going to give you the power to endure persecution. It's going to give you the motivation to endure times where you're not excited. It's going to give you power to propel when you want to give up because the grace is on your life to do it. All right. So the 17th verse, and it came to pass when I was come again to Jerusalem, even when I prayed in the temple, I was in a trance, and I saw him saying to me, Make haste and get thee quickly out of Jerusalem, for they will not receive thy testimony. 19th verse, and I said unto the Lord, Lord, they know that I am imprisoned and beat in every synagogue them that believe on thee. And when the blood of thy martyr Stephen was shed, I was the one standing by him, consulting unto his death, and kept the raiment of them that slew him. And he said unto me, Depart, for I will send thee far hence unto the Gentiles. So Paul is just rehearsing back to, Jesus, like to Jesus. He's like, remember, I'm the one that persecuted them. You're telling me to leave Jerusalem and go to the Gentiles? Okay. They're not, the Gentiles are the ones who basically received the testimony of Jesus, but most of them are not going to be convinced that Paul is a disciple. So consequently, Paul is going to pretty much spend the balance of his life convincing people that he literally has been converted. He's no longer the one who looks out to find Christians, to persecute, to prosecute, and then execute. That's not me anymore. That's not my name anymore. All right. Okay, let's move on. So, 22nd verse, and he gave him audience unto his word, and then lifted up their voices and said, Away with such a fellow from the earth, for it is not fit that he should live. And as they cried out and cast off their clothes and threw dust into the air, the chief captain commander of him to be brought to the castle. The chief captain commanded him to be brought to the castle and bid that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know wherefore they cried so against him. So they need to call Paul into questioning so they could find out why the people were so vehemently opposed to him. Okay. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned, an innocent Roman? That's what he's saying. Is it lawful for you to kill or persecute or to whip, basically to beat a Roman citizen who's innocent without a trial? Even though they did it to Jesus, but he's saying it's not lawful. So Paul found basically a loophole to keep himself from being completely. I mean, he was sold out to Christ, but he wasn't sold out to the point where if he had an out, he wouldn't take it. And this was an out. Okay? So he says, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. And the chief captain came and said unto him, tell me, thou art a Roman? He said, yes, I am. The chief captain answered, with a great sum, he says, with a great sum I obtain this freedom. And Paul says, but I was born free. Then straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. And the chief captain also was afraid after he knew that he was a Roman citizen, and because he had bound him. On the morrow, because he would have known the certainty whereof he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from his band and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them. So, again, here's what's happening. Paul is about to be beat and scourged to find out why is it that the Jews are so adamantly opposed to him. Now, to the Jews, you remember in the earlier part of the chapter, he says, I am a Jew of the Jew. Remember, I've been trained by the great Gamaliel. There is no one more Pharisaic than me. I am Paul of Tarsus, of the tribe of Benjamin. There is no one more Jewish than me. That's what he did and espoused early on in the chapter. But when he found himself coming before the Jewish council and under the threat of being scourged, beat, and perhaps executed, then Paul begins to expose the fact that not only am I a Jew, but I'm a Roman citizen. So you can't treat me this way. You can't bring these accusations and these activities against me because I am, like you, a Roman citizen. And as such, you cannot prosecute an innocent man, especially if he is Roman. You may be able to do that against Jews in other nations, but you cannot do it against one of your own countrymen. So Paul apparently has dual citizenship. He's both the Jew and a Roman citizen all at the same time. And of such, that's where he took advantage of that so they wouldn't, again, bring him for scourging and perhaps blasphemy and begin possibly to execute him. So this chapter ends right there because they're assembling together a proconsul so as to hear Paul's testimony and to determine if he's worthy to be released, or should he be put to death, or at least should he be scourged. So with that, we're going to pause there, and of course we'll pick it up next week. Hopefully you'll join us again, and you will have at least 10 of your friends to join in with you. Okay? What's up, fam? It's Pastor Mike with you. Listen, I've got a question. How much is your future worth? I mean, really, how much do you value your own particular destiny? And then that becomes a question of investing. How much is it worth investing in? You know, they say in life that you only get out of it what you put in it. So what if I were to tell you that I can help you get more money than you've ever gotten before, have more happiness than you've ever had before, and have more peace than you've ever had before? I want you to join me on my coaching platform called The Wisdom Blueprint. The Wisdom Blueprint is simply the what to, the how to, everything you need to know to have more joy, to have more peace, to have more money. Join me on the Wisdom Blueprint every month. It's a monthly subscription, no contracts necessary. Cancel at any time and get the insight, the intel you need that will take your life, your ministry, your business to the next level. I'm talking about the Wisdom Blueprint. Sign up today. That's exactly right. Need to sign up today. Many are doing this from all around the world because they understand that wisdom is the principal thing. You need wisdom in everything. Did you not know? Here's a bit of theological fact that we all acknowledge that God created the heavens and the earth. But if you read through the Psalms, you'll discover that God used wisdom, and it really speaks in terms of wisdom being a person. And so it suggests that he followed the blueprint that wisdom designed and God executed. So it is the wisdom that is the blueprint, but it's God that executed. Just like the scripture says that many are the plans of a man's heart, but it's God's purpose that prevails. So you might plan a thing, but it takes God to walk you through it. So wisdom is the primary thing. I want to encourage you. Sign up for a month. You don't have to worry. There's no contracts. Cancel at any time. No one's going to come and get you. But I want to challenge you to arm yourself with this monthly wisdom upload that's going to give you insight in all manner of life issues, whether it's marriage, whether it's identifying, self-identification, whether it's finances. And trust me, we've got a whole lot that's coming down the pike to help you in the area of your finances. And I'm telling you right now, it's not going to require a bottle of oil for you to get it. All right. We're going to share more about that in the days to come. But again, I challenge you, sign up for 1 month, check it out. If you don't like it, cancel it. That's as simple as it is. You don't have to write it off. You don't have to give any blood or anything. Just cancel. Walk away. All right. But many are doing it because they understand that wisdom is found in a multitude of counsel. And that's what the wisdom blueprint it is. It is the same as what God used to create the heavens and the earth, the insight, the wisdom, the know-how to handle various things that would happen in life. That's why Solomon was so blessed. He was so blessed because he asked for wisdom. He didn't ask for money. And as a result of asking for wisdom instead of money, guess what? He got the money. He's got the power. He got the insight. So again, enough said. Go and sign up today and be a part of the Wisdom Blueprint community. And I'm sure you will be blessed in the process. One other thing I need to remind you of, tomorrow night at 7 p.m., I'll be in Clubhouse, at the Clubhouse. And in Clubhouse, I'll be there at 7 p.m. in the Wisdom Blueprint room. Again, this is an actual excerpt from the Wisdom Blueprint learning platform. We're going to talk about all kinds of things there that will bless you and increase your life in immeasurable ways. Okay, so make sure you join us there on tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Download the app if you don't already have it. And then again, of course, I got to remind you to join us Sunday. I get so excited about Sundays. 9 a.m., the Movement Church, 2160 North Hiawassee Road. You're talking about equipping the saints. That's what we do every Sunday, 9 a.m. And please plan to come early, because if you come fashionably late, you will have missed half of the service, because we're generally out of there at about, I would say, 10:30. We're out the door. So 9 to 10:30. All right. So can you etch out an hour and a half for God? No condemnation. All right. Join us Sunday. Also, I want to thank those who are prayerfully and financially supporting this ministry. It takes you to make it happen. This does not happen by happenstance or osmosis. I thank you for your prayers, but I equally thank you for your financial support. Pray and ask God what your portion should be in this. Many are giving $28. in our campaign to help develop the ministry and add to it. Some are doing $28, some are doing $280, others are doing $2,800. Whatever, wherever you fit, obey God as he inspires your heart to do so, and I know that he will give it back to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over in immeasurable ways. He will cause men to give in to your bosom. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and enjoy this Black History Month. And you know what I mean when I say Black, African, African American, the children of the African diaspora. That's what this month is in recognition of. And we've got more to share with you. I believe the month ends on Tuesday next week, but I got one more installment we're going to share. All right. Until then, I'm praying for you. God bless. Listen.